What I'd like this to be is a civilized debate between two people with very strong opinions about this.
Wherever we see suffering, wherever we see death and destruction, assault, sexual assault, we see Dershowitz to the rescue, the former defense attorney of Jeffrey Epstein.
Mohammed, attacking a lawyer
Yes.
for defending people is a stupid argument.
Stop looking at me when I'm speaking to you.
What's this got to do with Israel?
This shows you the bias in the coverage.
You're talking complete bullshit.
You should be arrested
Good
without
boy.
charge if you're
Good
held
boy.
for a
Don't be
security
so
reason.
pathetic.
Question
I'll tell you
about
what, let me ask the question.
Sure, go
and
ahead.
you guys try and
Go
debate
ahead.
it.
Why is this uncomfortable?
It's nothing to do with the debate.
Good
Why
info.
are you doing this, Mohammed?
Why not?
Because it's pointless. Well, if you didn't want to do a debate, don't agree to do it.
What's wrong with you? Why are you not looking at me again? You're crying. Are you crying?
No tears in my eyes. Is there any point in considering this? The events of the past year have shattered stability in the Middle East. Israel's war on Hamas, provoked by the atrocities of October the 7th, have led to the deaths of tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians. Prime Minister Netanyahu promised total victory and the complete destruction of Hamas. But 1 year on, Hamas is still firing rockets at Tel Aviv. 1 year on, 97 hostages remain in Hamas captivity. Very clearly, Israel's not fulfilled its stated aims in this war, and it continues to add new ones. It's now at war in Lebanon and on the precipice of a direct conflict with Iran. It has no plausible exit strategy in Gaza, where millions live in grief and under occupation. But it has, without question, decimated Iran's client militias. Hezbollah, the jewel in Iran's crown, has been decapitated. The question is whether that makes the Middle East and the world a safer or a more dangerous place. Can it really be said that Israel is winning this war? How big will this war get? And how much collateral damage and suffering can the world tolerate before enough is enough? This debate will examine the legality, the morality, and the sustainability of the conflicts in the Middle East. Joining me are two of our most passionate advocates for their cause: the Muslim philosopher, scholar, and YouTuber Mohammed Hijab, and the lawyer and author Alan Dershowitz. Well, welcome to both of you. Mohammed, you've been on twice before, Alan many times. What I'd like this to be is a civilized debate between two people with very strong opinions about this, obviously very different opinions, where we try and reach potentially some points of agreement. Because so often with these debates, that seems almost impossible. It descends into a shouting match, everyone gets ad hominem, everyone digs ever deeper into their trench, their tribe, and we don't get anything constructive out of it. I think you guys are smart enough to potentially, through spirited and passionate debate, agree about some stuff. And that is surely the first basis for how any of this eventually gets resolved. So let's hope for the best. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, as they say. Alan Dershowitz, let me start with you. Israel, it seems to me, in the last 3 weeks, have massively ramped up their military offensive in a way that says to me that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet sense an opportunity to completely, in their eyes, sort out the Middle East problem once and for all, with Iran at the center of that problem. Is that how you see this?
Yes, I do. I see Iran as the head of the octopus, sending out its tentacles through the Houthis, through Hamas, through Hezbollah. The tragedy, as we celebrate's a bad word, commemorate October 7th, is that if Sinwar and Hamas had the opportunity to do it again, knowing everything that followed, knowing all the deaths and disasters in Gaza and in Lebanon, I think Hamas would do it again, would do October 7th again, because they think they've won. They've turned college and university students against Israel. They have solidified the United Nations opposition to Israel. They've divided Americans, particularly the Republican administrations in the past, from the current Democratic administration. So Hamas cannot be allowed to have a victory on growing out of October 7th any more than ISIS should have been allowed to have a victory going out of 9/11. So I think the answer is yes, a military defeat for Iran and its surrogates, and a peace process between Israel and Saudi Arabia with steps taken toward the recognition of a two-state solution, which is the only reasonable solution that will solve the problem. But remember that October 7th was stimulated by the desire to prevent Israel and Saudi Arabia from creating a peace process following up from the Abraham Accords. And unless that peace process continues, and unless Hamas is told, no, you failed, the world will not reward you for this, we're just going to see a continuation of the bloodshed in the Middle East, which does not serve the interests of the Palestinians nor the Israeli people.
Okay, Mohammed Hijab, your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that wherever we see suffering, wherever we see death and destruction, especially of young people, assault, sexual assault, we see Dershowitz to the rescue, the former defense attorney of Jeffrey Epstein, a man himself accused
I
of
knew
rape.
we would get to that. I
didn't give you permission to interrupt me. I didn't give you permission to interrupt me. I stayed quiet when you were talking.
Okay, here's what I would say.
I stayed quiet when you were talking.
Hang on. Here's what I would say.
To the merits.
I didn't give you permission.
Listen, Mohammed, attacking a lawyer for defending people is a stupid argument.
Well,
right?
I'm not making an argument yet.
Well, you're just using an ad hominem attack straight off the top.
Has he got leverage on you? Is that
no,
why
he's a brilliant lawyer.
You saw your picture with Maxwell. He's got leverage on you.
He's a brilliant lawyer.
Are you saying that because he's got leverage on you?
I met Ghislaine Maxwell for 5 minutes at a book launch.
You look very happy with her.
Well, I didn't know anything about her at the
You look
time,
very
other
happy
than she
with
was
her.
the daughter of the man that
We're talking about the biggest sexual scandal in the last 100 years.
Who I never met Jeffrey Epstein or ever knew him. Alan Dershowitz was wrongly accused of various things in relation to Jeffrey Epstein.
How do you know it's wrongly?
Because they've all been...
Why are you defending him?
They all turned out to be nonsense. He won a court case about it.
Why are you not looking at me when I'm speaking to you?
Well, I can turn to you, but there are three of us involved in this.
Yeah, you're speaking to me, so I'm
okay,
looking
let me make things clear.
Yeah.
I never met Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
I met Ghislaine Maxwell for 5 minutes.
You look very happy in that picture.
Okay, if you want to use that as an ad hominem attack
why
on me,
why are you defending him?
Hang on, a picture taken in 2013.
He spoke for 3 minutes. I spoke for 20 seconds.
I'm defending him because your first attack on him is to attack him as a lawyer because he defends bad people.
That's fine.
Here's a little secret for you, Mohammed.
All
lawyers do that.
No, but hold on. We're not talking about bad people. We're talking about... Excuse me. You've had enough You've had enough speaking. I'm talking about a person who, after the fact, said that he was proud to defend him after the allegations come out. You still want to... Do you condemn Dershowitz?
For what?
For defending Epstein.
I have defended...
And being proud of defending Epstein.
It's not for me to defend him.
I have defended some of the best people in the world.
Okay, Alan, you defend yourself.
No, why should he defend himself? I haven't even spoken for 20 seconds.
Alan can defend himself.
But let me speak for more than 20 seconds. I haven't even made my point yet.
I helped to defend Bill Clinton.
Now, is it?
I've helped to defend some of the finest people in the world, and I've also helped
John
to defend
Lennon,
some of the
he
worst.
defended. Is
I
that
never
a terrible
justified.
crime?
He was not proud of defending John Lennon in the same way as he announced that he was proud of defending Epstein.
What's this got to do with Israel?
This has got to do with the fact that this man, the credibility of this man is on the line. He defends Israel on the one hand, and on the other hand, he defends Epstein. I think the public should know this.
Do you want me to play the clips?
He's proud of it.
Mohammed, do you want me to play the clips of you
that
do the rounds on social media saying some very inflammatory things? Do you want me to?
Why are you not looking at me?
Because I'm looking at the three of us.
I'm right here.
I can turn to you, and then the viewers see me and you looking at us.
Look at me man to man.
Fine.
Look at me man to man. Look at my eyes.
It's called an aesthetic thing for videos.
Okay, now, the first thing I wanted to say was that this man's credibility is something which is shocking, that we're even entertaining.
What do you base that on?
On the fact that he actually defended Epstein, and after the fact, he said he was proud of it. He was in Epstein's vicinity. He had a massage in his vicinity. This is the kind of person that we're having on the show defending Israel. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, in the first interaction where me and you were talking about October the 7th, we spent about 3 or 4 minutes actually talking about sexual assault allegations, if you remember that. And actually here, what we have is Israeli soldiers like Mir, from Unit 100, and that's on The Guardian, it's on Sky News, it's on all these kinds of platforms, coming out, and there's videographic evidence of him raping another man. I haven't heard condemnation from you, and I don't expect to hear it from him who defended Epstein. Well, this shows you the bias in the coverage for a year, where we know the ICJ have said that there's a plausible genocide.
You haven't been watching my show.
I think I have.
No, you haven't.
Have you spoken about me?
You're talking complete bullshit.
Okay, tell me why.
Right?
Tell me why.
Because, A, I did condemn what you've just talked about in a previous debate.
Good.
Right?
Dershowitz, do you condemn it?
Yes, of course. I condemn any rape of anybody in any assault on anybody who's in captivity.
And
Of
you
course I
also
do.
condemn
And
the
I don't
right
defend-
of rape,
I
the
don't
right of rape
defend-
protest that took place in Israel. And you acknowledge that there's a
if
problem
any
in Israel
rapes
with
took
this.
place, they will be investigated. They will be fully investigated. They will be
you acknowledge that
court-martialed.
there's a problem
and
in
if
Israeli
anybody is
society?
convicted of that, they deserve their
Do you
punishment. I
acknowledge
don't
that there's a
defend
problem in
What
Israeli
about the
rape.
problem with Hamas
Sure.
raping women?
I have no compunction.
On October the 7th.
I have no compunction condemning Hamas for anything that they've done. You've said that. You've asked me before, and I've told you before. I have no moral scruple. Neither do the majority of the Muslim world. I tell you now, anything that Hamas has done, we have condemned in the first instance. But we're not seeing the same level of coverage with Hamas as we are seeing with these people that are shoving rods off people's ass and raping people on videographic evidence. And you have 3,000 people, you talk about the hostages, you've got 3,000 people in essentially captivity, according to Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem, who are prisoners of war of Israel, and we're spending a fraction of the time speaking about them as compared to speaking about the hostages. This shows you the inherent
Well,
bias.
there's no comparison. There's no comparison between innocent hostages who
Why?
did nothing wrong and people who are being charged with criminal offenses.
They're
If
not charged with
innocent,
criminal
they'll be
offences.
found
That's why you're meant to
innocent.
know better. You're
And
meant to know
but
better
they
than
are
that.
charged
They're
with
not charged
security
with criminal
offenses.
offences.
But you
They're
can't.
not charged with criminal
you can't
offences.
compare.
They are
you can't
arrested
compare
without
a 3-year
charge.
You can't
They are
compare a
arrested without
3-year-old
charge. They're not
baby.
charged with criminal
Don't
offences.
shout
You
over
can't
each other. We can't hear the answer.
Well, he's
can't
lying to the
compare a
public.
3-year-old
Allow him to
baby
respond.
Go
to
ahead.
somebody who's a member of Hamas.
Say that
Sorry,
again.
Alan, we couldn't hear you because he was shouting.
I was shouting. Say it
Alan,
again.
he says the 3,000...
I'm saying you can't compare
Alan, he
a
says the
3-year-old
3,000...
baby.
Alan, just to be clear, he said the 3,000 people he's talking about were all arrested without charge, and therefore they've not been charged with crimes. Your response to that?
Well, if they were, they should be released. Nobody should be arrested
Good
without
boy.
charge. If you're
Good
held for a
boy.
Don't be
security
so
reason,
pathetic.
I will
during
say
the
what I
war-
want. It's uncensored. Good
Let me
boy.
finish,
It's
please.
pathetic.
Let me
It's
make my
childish.
point.
Try and have a
Can I
proper
make my
debate.
point,
I'll
please?
say what I like.
Can I make my point? Let me make my point. Great Britain confined tens of thousands of people without charges during the Second World War.
Two wrongs
the
don't
United
make a
States
right.
did the same.
Two wrongs don't
I
make a right.
was
Should we talk about what
strongly
Hitler done?
opposed.
Let's talk about what
Please
Hitler
let
done.
me make my point. I'm opposed to that. I wrote an article against
Good boy.
administrative detention. But you
Good.
can't compare that, no
Good.
masse how
Can you
bad
stop
it
this,
is.
Mohammed? It's
You
very
can't
very
compare
tedious
it
already.
to 3-year-olds being
Debate it.
kidnapped, to people
listening to his
being
points.
raped and murdered. You can't compare what happened on October 7th to what Israel has done
Yes, you
in
can't,
terms
because
of
on the one
security
hand,
prisoners.
you've got
There's
30,000
no
people, and the other hand,
comparison
you've got
at all.
about 100.
And stop
That's
interrupting
30 times
me, please.
more. That's 30 times more. If you want us to take you seriously, if you want us to take this coverage seriously, if you want us to take Western media seriously, then let's, for God's sake, talk about proportionality as your favorite word. We're talking about 30,000 people detained in prisons on the one hand, and 100 people who are hostages. And yet we have managed somehow to spend way more time
Hang on,
proportionally.
you said 3,000 a minute ago. Which one is it? 3,000?
Sorry,
30,000?
3,000.
But
Stand
not
corrected.
30,000.
Not 30.
Okay,
3,000.
Get your numbers right if you're going to make that kind
Okay, I misspoke.
You exaggerated
Not a problem.
10 times.
Not a problem. He spoke about Iran. Let me ask you a question
I'll
about
tell you what,
it.
let me ask the question.
Sure, go
and
ahead.
you guys try and
Go
debate
ahead.
it.
Go
At
ahead.
the moment, Alan Dershowitz is being very civilised in the way he's debating.
sure you're gonna say that.
You're just making
might have
ad
leverage
hominem
on you.
attacks and shouting all
He's
the
your
time.
friend.
No one can understand it when you
Have you
shout
met him
all the time.
before?
I know Alan well.
Oh, you know him well.
I respect him very much.
Oh, yes, you do.
He's one of America's top lawyers.
He's top lawyers.
Yeah, he is.
And you're an unbiased person here on Central.
An unbiased person about Alan Dershowitz. Why?
Does he have leverage on you, Piers Morgan?
There's no leverage on me, no.
You've got a picture with Maxwell.
Yes, with Ghislaine
Did you
Maxwell.
go to the island?
No, I've never been to the island. I've never met Jeffrey Epstein.
Be honest.
I never spent more than 5 minutes with
Be
Ghislaine
honest.
Maxwell. I've answered you. So what part of that wants to...
Do you condemn him being on the island? He's your good friend.
You can ask
No, I'm
Alan
asking, do you
Dershowitz
condemn him?
about Jeffrey Epstein.
You had a massage.
He represented him.
He said he didn't take his shorts off.
Do you know what?
That's
None
what
of
that's
this
what
has
he
got
said.
anything to do with Israel.
He said he didn't take his shorts off when he was getting a
Can you
massage.
please, Mohammed.
Why is this uncomfortable?
It's nothing to do with the debate.
He didn't take his shorts off, but he's got his pants down now, hasn't he?
Can you stop it?
Why?
What's the point?
Why? He
'Cause it's
defended one of
actually-
the most obnoxious people in the last 100 years. Why should I
Because
stop it?
actually what is going on right
should I
now
stop it?
in the Middle East is incredibly important.
Yes,
You're
and you have this
trivialising-
man who's-
You are
he-
trivialising that. Well, if you didn't want to do a debate, don't agree to do it.
Who said I'm not doing a debate? I'm saying this person who's
Come on and
defending
make
Israel.
stupid ad hominem attacks is pathetic.
Oh, okay. All right. Is your good friend, you want to defend him so much?
What are you talking about?
You're defending him.
Huh?
You're defending him. You're defending a monster, a pervert, an old pervert.
He's not a pervert or a monster.
Why is he not? He knew Epstein, and for us, there's good inference.
Why are you doing this, Mohammed?
Why not?
Because it's pointless. You may get a few
Okay,
clicks
ask
on.
your questions.
You
Well,
might get a
ask
few
your questions.
clicks on it. So what?
It's not.
Ask your questions.
Let me be very clear. It's not pointless. He just called me a pervert. He will be sued now for defamation, and we will be able to resolve this
opinion. In
in
the
a
UK, we have
court of
different
law. I
defamation
guarantee you that he will be sued.
In
for
my
calling
understanding,
me a
you are a pervert
the woman
because you
who
are
falsely
acquainted with
accused
Jeffrey
me
Epstein.
Has now withdrawn her
Sure, I've got my own defamation
accusation
cases. I know the
and
law very well here.
acknowledged that
You
she
can't
may
threaten
have
me. You can't
confused me
threaten
with
me. I know the
somebody
law very
else.
well.
And
I
calling me
consider
a
you to be a
pervert
pervert
will
because of your
result
connection with
in
Jeffrey
a
Epstein.
defamation lawsuit
Sure,
in
I'm
an
ready for
American
it.
court
I'm
and in a
ready.
British
I'm ready
court.
for the
I
lawsuit.
assure you of that.
I believe
Let's
you
move
are
on
an
to
old
Israel
pervert.
now.
Why don't we move
We'll
on to the
resolve
debate?
this in
You're an old
court.
pervert.
Let's move on
You're
to
an old pervert.
Israel.
It's really. This is. Is there any point in considering this?
Do you want to throw the towel?
No. What's the point?
Do you want to throw-
We're
I'm
not
happy
doing
to
the
throw the
debate
towel.
you were
To
booked to
debate
do.
Do you want to both
Israel.
throw the towel?
You were not booked to
you wanna
talk
give
about
up?
this.
Do you wanna give up?
Just debate the issues.
Let's talk about the issues. Let's talk
Well,
about
come on,
Iran.
then.
Let's talk about Iran.
Let's talk about Iran.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Do you support Iran?
Okay, well, let me answer your question. Iran was attacked on April the 1st, right? It was attacked, the embassy of Iran was attacked in Syria by Israel. After that, on the first occasion, they then sent missiles and drones, correct? Now, my question to you is, does Iran have a right to defend itself? And if so, what is a proportionate response? Because you see, I've been having a moral quandary about the issue. Piers Morgan, what's a proportionate response for Iran?
I'll tell you what I think about Iran. I think Iran is an unbelievably nefarious place which has been fueling Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah
Does it have
for
a right to
many
defend
years
itself?
with a joint
Does it have a right to defend
a
itself?
joint ideology that they want to eradicate Israel in any way they can.
Okay. Does it have
so
a right to
I
defend
think
itself?
Iran is one of the most despicable
Does it have a right to
regimes
defend itself?
in the world. I also think that right now the Iranian regime is in serious danger.
You look completely
of-
discombobulated.
of- What do you mean?
You look disheveled.
I'm telling you what I think of Iran.
I'm asking you, do they have a right to defend themselves? Do you think they have a right to defend themselves? Both of you can answer the question. Do they have a right to defend? They were attacked. The sovereign nation was attacked. My question is, does it have a right to defend?
Iran has been fueling
Isn't that the
attacks
question
on
you've been
Israel
asking?
now for what, 40
I've
years?
been having a moral quandary about
What?
this. I've been having a moral quandary about Iran.
Have you?
Yeah, moral quandary, yes. Moral quandary, I don't know. Do they have a right to defend themselves? And if so, what is the proportionate
So you're
response?
supporting Iran, to be clear.
I'm asking you. No,
Are
I'm
you
not
supporting
I'm
Iran?
not supporting. I'm antithetical to many of these organizations for my own purposes. But my question to you,
Do you support the Iranian regime?
not unconditionally, but I support their
What
right,
conditions do you agree with them about?
their right to defend themselves. Do you believe they have a right to defend themselves?
No, because I think they're terrorists.
Oh, so they don't have a right to defend themselves. Iran does not have a right to defend itself.
They do, but they're not the ones.
So what is proportionate response?
They're not the ones.
What's a proportionate response?
Okay.
No,
Can I answer you?
You asked this question to the
You're
people.
just going to keep talking. Can I answer you?
What's a proportionate response?
The proportionate response to Iran is to stop them trying to destroy Israel through their proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas. What they've been trying to do for many years.
What is a proportionate response of Iran after their embassy was smashed and destroyed in Syria and 16 people were killed? What's a proportionate response?
Well, what about the proportionate response to everything Iran's done?
Which is against the Vienna Conventions.
What about the response to everything Iran
What
has
did
been
Iran
doing?
do to Israel? Who did they kill? Who did they?
They've never killed anybody
Who
in
did
Iran.
they?
How deluded are you,
No,
Mohammed?
excuse me. Hold on. Which Israeli civilian have Iran successfully targeted? Give me one name, please.
You don't think Iran's been responsible for any Israeli civilian dying?
I'm asking you to edify
What about
me.
the way they funded Hamas?
can
You
give
can
you-
both edify
I can
me.
give you some
1,200
names.
people in Israel.
Iran in
October the
particular. I'm not
7th.
talking about Hamas. We've spoken about Hamas at length. We're
But
talking
I
about
can
Iran.
give
now.
Do
you
it
some
through their
We're talking
specific
about Iran. It's
names.
old news. You're talking
Right.
about
Let's let
Hamas.
Alan respond.
Yes, go ahead. Who did they successfully target?
Well,
That's
let
my
me
question.
respond.
Yeah, please, yeah.
The Iranians have been found by an Argentine court to have been guilty of killing hundreds of Israeli and Jewish people in Buenos Aires. They killed Marines through Hezbollah. They were combatants, but the attack on the Israeli Cultural Center,
Where was
the
that?
attack on the Israeli embassy were attacks, according to the Argentinian judicial proceedings, attacks on Israel, entitling Israel to engage in response. Now, let me explain what proportionality means, because you're missing the point. Proportionality doesn't require that a country that's attack back in proportion. Proportionality only means that if you're going to attack a mixed target that has civilians and combatants, the ratio of civilians to combatants must be proportional to the military value of the target. And that's what Israel has been trying to do. But Iran has killed thousands and thousands of Israeli and Jewish civilians over the years. So to defend somehow
So what ratio is
Iran and
acceptable?
saying
What ratio is
that
acceptable?
they were innocent,
What kind of
even
ratio
the
in your
people who
understanding
were
is acceptable?
killed, even the people
What ratio
who
is
were
acceptable?
killed
You've
in
spoken
the
for some length
embassy
now. What
were
ratio is acceptable?
combatants who were legitimately killed
Can you hear me or not?
as combatants.
What's an acceptable ratio for you?
So Iran has no right of self-defense against that. Israel was completely entitled to kill.
Let me answer what you've just said.
Israel was entitled to kill any combatant that was hiding in an embassy building.
Hold on. You've just conflated two things. You've spoken about the Argentinian case, which there is not actual an independent international investigation on, number one. And then you've spoken about, we speak about 1st of April. Was that a response to Argentina? It was not a response to Argentina. On the 1st of April, they bombed the Iranian embassy in Syria. They did not do so. They said that is a military base and that we're attacking. But we all know that in this country, for example, every single embassy has military attachés. They have military attachés. So if you go to the US embassy here in London, they have armed officers. Does that make it a viable target? Does it make the US embassy a viable target? The Russian embassy a viable target? This is clearly against the UN Convention. It's against the Vienna Conventions. You cannot attack. You cannot attack an embassy of another nation in another sovereign land. You cannot do that. And
let me respond to that.
Hold on.
Let him answer.
Let me respond to that.
Sake.
Let me respond.
It's been
it was not an embassy. It was an ancillary building being used as a military center to plan attacks against Israel. They used the pretext of it being a building somehow attached to an embassy. The evidence is very clear.
Which is?
And be happy to have them bring a lawsuit and see if it can be resolved in a court of law. But Israel was entitled to regard who was killed. The people who were killed were military people who were planning attacks on Israel.
That's not true.
Using an annex to a building to do it. Did that justify 3,000 rockets being sent into Israel?
Hold on. Let me respond.
180 ballistic missiles being sent into Israel?
Have you made your point?
Not.
Okay. The response is as follows. First of all, 16 people were killed officially, and of them, there were 2 civilians that were killed. So what you're saying is only military targets is flatly false, squarely false, barefaced lie. You're a liar, as you were a liar when you were defending Epstein. That's number one. Number two is, when you say that, okay, that was a response, when Iran then, on the 14th of April, responded with missiles, once again, how many casualties were there? How many casualties were there? 0. Just like there were 0 casualties when they responded recently in October. Not one person died except for one Palestinian, ironically enough, that was apparently killed in the October one. But in the April one, no one died. It was precise strikes at military bases. Number 2, you speak about this being a base. As I say now, if you look at Collins' dictionary right now, there's 2 aspects of what is a military base, vernacularly speaking. Number 1 is that there has to be weapons in that place, and number 2, that there has to be training of soldiers. This is usually understood as what is a military base.
That's just made up. Those are made up stories. There's no truth to that at all.
What's made up? Which part of it is made up?
There's no truth to that.
Let him respond.
I haven't finished my point.
The fact that you need weapons.
Made a statement.
No,
He's saying it's wrong.
let me finish what I'm saying.
That's just made up. You don't need weapons to have a military base. It could be a command center where they're planning attacks.
Let me finish.
That's just made up.
Let me finish.
The more you say, the happier I am.
Okay. What I'm saying to you is that if you look at almost every Western government embassy in the West and outside of the West, they have military attachés. You can fact check this. You can go online. You will see in the US embassy, in the French embassy, in the British embassy, military guards, people there that have their own weapons and guns. So according to you, that would be a military base. See, are they then legitimate targets?
What happened in this case was they used an annex of a building
Can we then contravene the Vienna agreements? Can we then conventions, can we
you
then?
don't know what
can
you're
we
talking
then,
about. You have
Okay,
no
hold on.
knowledge of international law or diplomacy
Wait.
law, the law of
You
war.
haven't got
so
one
please.
peer-reviewed. You don't have one peer-reviewed work on international law. And Jimmy Carter, the former U.S. president, said you have no knowledge of Palestine. Don't speak to me about Palestine and its issues. Jimmy Carter,
Well,
a former president of the United States, as you acknowledge, you've written it in your book. He says that you have no knowledge of the Palestine issue. Jimmy Carter said that. Don't speak to me like that.
Well, you want to hear something?
Yeah,
it
the only
was
thing
in
you
my
have knowledge
book. In
about is
fact,
where the
it was in
doors
the
and the
back,
rooms and the masseuses
It was in the back
Stop
cover.
it.
It was the
in
back
Epstein's
cover of
house.
my
Goodness
book.
sake.
That's what you have knowledge of.
I've written 13 books.
Did you touch
I've
Virginia?
Written 13
Did you touch
books
her?
on Israel.
Did you touch Virginia?
Some of which
Did
have
you
been,
touch her? Did you touch that woman?
Never heard of her. Never met her. Never met her.
Don't lie.
Never. She.
Don't lie to
she
me.
just-
Did you touch that woman or not?
I'm telling you, I never met her, and she acknowledged
Did you
in
touch that
writing,
woman?
under oath,
Did you
that she
sexually
may
assault her?
have
You
have no
confused
knowledge
me
of
with
his case,
someone
do you?
else
You wouldn't be
and
saying that.
terminated
Question.
the
You're
case.
repeating
How- why are you
serious
defending him?
information.
Has he got leverage
Because he
over
won
her?
a case. It was proven to be lies.
I'm asking him a
Why are
question.
you doing this?
I'm asking him a question.
This is not about Israel.
This is
You're
the
trying to be a
credibility of
clever
this
dick, but what
individual.
you're doing is inviting a lawsuit from Anna, which you will get.
I'm ready for it.
You are?
Yeah.
Really?
I've got 4 defamation
Good.
cases, all of which
Good.
have... Your friend Douglas Murray, I'm taking him to court.
Well, good luck with taking on Annan on this, is all I would
I'm
say
ready
to
for
you.
him. Oh, you love him, don't you?
No, it's just one case.
I just wonder what he has.
Defending himself.
I just wonder what leverage he has. Does he have any leverage on
God,
you?
this is pathetic, man.
I don't know why you keep defending
He's
him.
Why
now
you
accusing
haven't
me
been
of
like this before we come on the show. Why are you doing it now?
He's a
Morgan,
monster.
right?
This man is a monster.
Well, why debate then?
Because I don't mind debating monsters, just like you don't mind debating monsters. We have that in common.
Do you want to finish the debate about the bigger picture or not?
I'm speaking about it. You guys are the ones rattled. I'm not
No
rattled.
one's rattled. We just think it's
You're
pathetic.
both rattled.
We think it's pathetic because you don't understand what you're talking about.
Really, that's just an assertion, really, isn't it?
No, you're just trying to get your clicks on X, and that's fine.
Oh, isn't
But
that what you
nothing
do?
you'll-
Is there anything wrong with that?
No, you know what? Try and debate the issue.
You always brag about it, my
Try
friend.
and debate
you
the
brag about
issue.
it myself. We've got 1 million views, 2 million views. You talk about it all the time.
Alan, let me ask you something, which is about what Israel is doing. At the heart of it, if you take the belief that Iran is the main target here, a lot of Israelis believe that Iran is really rattled and that Israel has a genuine opportunity to topple this regime. Do you think that is a likely eventuality? Is it a thing that Israel should be pushing to do?
I think if Israel has the military capacity to destroy Iran's nuclear abilities to create a nuclear arsenal and can do it with minimum civilian casualties, the way it did it in Iraq and the way it did it in Syria, it ought to do that. But if it risks a wider war, then obviously it has to take into account other considerations and the opinions of the United States. So it's largely a military question. Israel certainly has the right to destroy Iran's nuclear capacity. Rafsanjani, the former president of Iran, said if Iran developed nuclear weapons, they would use them against Israel, kill 3 million Israelis. Israel's a one-bomb state. That would be the end of Israel. And even if Israel retaliated and killed 10 million Muslims in Tehran, the trade-off would be worth it. No country should ever accept that kind of a threat. The United States wouldn't. They didn't in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Israel shouldn't as well. But it's a military decision, and I'm not competent to resolve whether Israel has the capacity to destroy Iran's nuclear ability without too many civilian casualties.
Okay, Mohammed, do you
That's
think
a military question.
Mohammed, do you think Hezbollah are terrorists or freedom fighters?
I have an antithetical view to Hezbollah, and that's been well documented in the record. However,
What's your view? I don't know.
Well, I tell you one thing. I'm not going to be baited into a sectarian debate here.
Asking you if you
Facebook
comment
and-
about Hezbollah.
Sure, I don't necessarily. I have an antithetical view to Hezbollah. However, on this
What do you
case, what I mean by that is that I don't necessarily support them in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Because of
How do you categorize them?
I categorize Hezbollah in their response to Israel as justified in that response.
And in the response for Assad in Syria against
then-
fellow Arabs?
Yeah, well, you and I both know that I have an antithetical view. I don't think that they were on the right side of history then. I do think they were acting in
So they were terrorists then?
Well, I mean, it depends on how. I think the word terrorism is a social construct. I
What
think the
were
biggest-
they? What were they when they fought for Assad against Arabs?
oppressive, and that's on the record. There's no doubt about it. You can call whatever you want, but the
So
word,
they were all the things that you would say Israel is.
when they were doing the thing with Bashar al-Assad, that is of course my view.
But they're only that thing when they're doing that. When they're attacking Israel, that's fine.
When they attacked Israel,
When they're attacking Arabs
Hold on.
on behalf of Bashar al-Assad,
No, but
in
that
Syria.
shows consistency.
No, hang on.
Doesn't that show consistency?
No.
Why not?
It doesn't show consistency.
It shows consistency.
The inconsistency is that you think that that was bad, but when they're attacking Israel,
Okay,
that's fine.
Let's respond. On the 8th of October, you mentioned many times before in your interviews that they attacked Israel.
Yes.
They attacked Israel, right?
They did.
That's not true.
They did.
They attacked the Sheba Farms, which is occupied
Which
territory.
Israel has claimed as its own since
Huh?
1967.
Wait a minute.
Which Israel,
it's occupied territory.
which Israel
It's
has claimed as its own
See, this
since
shows
1967.
this shows your lack of knowledge on the matter. It does.
Well,
It shows-
part of what I just said is not true.
You're
They've
ignorant
claimed
on
it
this.
as their own since 67.
Wait, hold on. This is occupied territory, according to the UN, according to the US. It's occupied territory.
I just said Israel have claimed it as
So
its own.
what? They can claim. I can claim what I want. ISIS have made many claims.
So,
it
given
doesn't-
given
Wait, hold
Israel...
on. Whatever Israel claims is true. Is that what we are meant to believe here?
Hezbollah has fired beyond the Sheba farms.
Now, let me explain.
Hezbollah
The
has
Sheba
fired into
farms were
Israeli cities.
Hold on.
Israel
hold on,
has,
Dershowitz.
they
Dershowitz,
have
I haven't
fired
finished
into
yet.
Haifa.
Dershowitz, I haven't finished yet. On the 8th of, you talked about the 8th of October. When they fired on the 8th of October, they fired, and you can go ahead and bring evidence that they fired anywhere else other than the Sheba Farms. They fired on the Sheba Farms. After that, there was response from Israel. And then after that, because there was response of Israel into Lebanon, then Hezbollah attacked the northern part of Israel. This is what happened. And that is justified according to international law. So on this issue, you will not find differences between Sunnis and Shias. You'll not find differences in us. We are all united in the hatred of the Zionist entity.
All right, Alan, your response to that?
Well, Hezbollah has been firing rockets at Israel for years and years under the auspices of Iran. Israel has fought back and responded, and Nasrallah has called for all the Jews of the world to be brought together into Israel so that they can be taken care of at the same time in the way that Hitler took care of the Jews of Europe. This is a genocidal claim by Nasrallah on behalf of Hezbollah, and certainly Israel had the right to respond to Hezbollah as they did. And, you know, you can quarrel with particular responses as you can quarrel with particular responses of any country. What the United States did after 9/11 was seen by many as an overreaction. Countries react when their civilians are murdered the way they were on 9/11 and the way they were on October 7th. And Israel had the right to respond. The United States and the world said so. And Hamas could end all the suffering in Gaza instantaneously by simply releasing the hostages and putting down their arms and calling for a genuine peace rather than a tactical ceasefire that just allows them to rearm and repeat October 7th. Remember, they said they would repeat October 7th over and over and over and over again. And as Elie Wiesel once said, always believe the threats of your enemies more than the promises of your friends. And so Israel has to act
Okay, let me bring
on
back
the
Mohammed.
assumption
I want to ask
that
Mohammed one
Hamas
thing.
is going to try to do this again and again.
Okay, Mohammed,
we've listened
Mohammed, you've said so far, unless I'm wrong, you don't support Hamas, you don't support Hezbollah. So there's probably more bits of agreement here with Alan Dershowitz and me than you might like to admit if you don't support those two groups.
Okay, so I don't see what that's got to do with anything. We were
Just
talking,
an
we were talking
observation.
about. We were talking about
I
October.
said at the start I wanted to find points
were
of agreement.
Sure.
Can we all agree that Hamas and Hezbollah are a bad thing?
I can agree that the white man, the Western man, has tried to use social constructs like terrorism to try and absolve themselves from all the things that they.
What would you call them, Hamas and Hezbollah?
Well, I mean, just like any human being. Just like any human being, they can sometimes be oppressive and they can sometimes be on the right side of history.
Most human beings do not do what Hamas did on October the 7th.
Well, in the Zionist entity, they do. And they do worse than that.
They don't.
They don't.
Israel's never committed an atrocity on that scale.
On what scale?
On that scale.
Explain. What scale?
Killing 1,200 people.
They've killed 40,000.
Sorry, in one day, massacring
They've killed 40,000.
Israelis that could get their
Wait,
hands
hold on.
kidnapping
On the
children.
23rd of September, what
kidnapping
happened?
Holocaust
On the
survivors,
23rd, we were talking about October the
raping and
7th.
abusing women, beheading people. Oh, you don't think that happened, do you?
Well, hold on. You just said raping and abusing. We just started
Yes.
the show with an admission that there's a problem in Israeli society, that there was
I'm talking about Hamas.
Yeah, but you just said Israel doesn't
We
do that.
both condemned what you talked about earlier in relation
So why are
to
you saying Israel don't do that? What's wrong with you?
I didn't say that.
You just said that now.
No, I didn't.
You said Israel doesn't do, and then you just listed 3 or 4 things, and that was one of the things that you just
No, I
listed.
said Israel had never...
Am I speaking a foreign tongue?
Sorry, listen to what I'm saying. I said Israel never perpetrated an atrocity on that scale.
Okay. On
In
the
one
23rd
day against the people
How many
of the
civilians?
Palestine. They never have.
Well, hold on. How many civilians died on October the 7th? Civilians.
Civilians about 800.
Oh, sure. All right.
But hang on.
Hold on.
But nearly 7,000 more were wounded.
Sure.
7,000
What happened on the 23rd of September?
were wounded.
What happened on the 23rd of September?
7,000.
Okay, sure.
Think about that number.
Okay, no problem.
That's the scale of people who were attacked on that day.
Are we talking over each other? It's 2-on-1 now.
8,000 people were attacked.
No problem. On the 23rd
One of the most horrendous terror attacks.
Is this going to be a monologue
in
or is it a
modern
dialogue?
history. I'm telling you some facts.
I know the facts.
You may not like it, but I'm telling you them.
Okay, I'm telling you, on the 23rd of September, Israel attacked Lebanon. How many people died? How many civilians died, according to the Lebanese health, the Ministry of Health?
I believe it's about 2,000 was the last recorded number I saw.
No, in one day. On the 23rd of September by
including
itself.
combatants, including many combatants.
No, on
They
the
haven't
23rd, how many
distinguished
died?
between combatants.
How many died? Why don't we have
we don't know how
year
many
commemorating the
civilians
23rd of a year commemorating the 23rd of September? Since we're having a year commemorating the 7th of October, and about 600 people died, 650 people, civilians died on that day. That's quite close, isn't it?
We don't know they're
8,000.
civilians. They don't
8,000?
distinguish between
8,000
civilians
people
and
were
combatants.
attacked.
We're not talking about attack, we're talking about dead. What's wrong with you? Why are you not looking at me again? You're crying. Are you crying?
Because the viewers are seeing the three of us together.
I see that
Mohammed.
there's tears in your eyes.
There are no tears in my eyes.
What's going on?
There's a slight sense of exasperation.
Sure, there should be. Because you are employing
What do you think I am?
I think you said it yourself with your interview with Mehdi Hassan. I think you're just biased. You talked about tribes.
Who am I biased against?
You're biased against anything anti-Western. Clearly, you said
What a ridiculous statement.
because you said it yourself. You said the reason why you have such and such a view with Russia
Do you
and
think I was
Ukraine.
biased when I led the media campaign against the Iraq War?
No, I think you were.
Was I biased against brown people then?
You were good then.
Was I?
You were, like
I
said,
was good then because you agreed with me.
Sure, because
Yeah.
you're on the side of truth. Just like I could say Hezbollah was not on the side of truth in 2013, but they're on the side of truth today. I can say this, and even though they're Muslims just like me, just like I can say that Hamas is wrong for doing such and such a thing, but they're right on such and such a thing. I can say all these things. You should be able to do the same thing.
What have Hamas been right about?
Resisting, because they're occupied territory. If they had just attacked,
They were
military
given
targets-
billions of dollars in 2005
Okay.
when they took charge of the
Have they got a right to defend themselves?
Hang on.
Against military
When they
targets?
took charge of the Palestinian people and had power from 2005, they got billions of dollars. And what they did with that money was spend it on tunnels, which
Okay.
they built around civilians.
Sure, so what?
So that they could then launch a horrendous terror attack.
Okay.
And they knew when Israel
We've
came after
spoken
them.
about the terror attack.
Hang
then.
on.
You're
When Israel
flogging a
then,
dead horse.
when Israel then came after them after October the 7th, they knew, because they'd embedded themselves on the tunnels
But
around
you
civilians,
you're flogging a
that
dead
a
horse.
lot of Palestinians would get slaughtered in the process.
My question
And
is,
that's exactly what's
My
happened.
question to you, does Palestine have a right to defend itself? Does Hamas have a right to defend itself exclusively against military targets?
Everybody has the right to defend themselves.
So Hamas can do that against military targets?
What they did not do themselves is not self-defense. It was a terror attack.
Hold on.
Is that saying Al Qaeda?
I'm not,
Is that
that's
saying
not my
Al Qaeda
question.
had the right to
But
do
that's
it
not, that's not
on
my-
September?
We both agreed that the civilian death is something which we both condemn. Yeah? We're talking about areas of agreement. You just said it yourself. I'm saying now, do you agree that Hamas has the right, because they're an occupied territory, Gaza is an occupied territory, according to the UK, by the way, they're an occupied territory because there's effective military control. According to the UK
They
and
ended their occupation in 2005.
No, hold on.
They ended the
You're meant to
occupation
be
in
intelligent. You're meant to
2005.
know this fact. According to the UK government, according
I know
to the
the
US
fact.
government, and you can check it up online, and according to the UN, all three organizations, Gaza is an occupied territory because there is no, because they have control over the borders, they have control of the population.
But I've said
because
this many
the air, the
times,
sea, and all
Mohammed.
that kind of. So, sure, you agree with it. You said it recently.
Let me give
I've
you the
said many
facts.
times
Let me
that I
give you the
believe that
facts.
what
Let me give you the
Israel
facts,
maintain-
please. Can I give you the facts?
Yes, you can respond.
Let me
Alan,
give
yeah.
you the facts.
Yeah.
Okay, the facts are in 2005, I was there in Israel when the Israeli government
Are you sure you were not in Epstein's house?
uprooted every single civilian,
Let me just say
every
it.
single
Stupid.
dead person
was
who
in
was
Epstein's
buried
house.
there.
Getting a massage.
Not a single soldier, not a single policeman was in Gaza. Gaza could have become
Might have been a
the
prepubescent
most
child
beautiful
getting that
spot
massage.
on the Mediterranean, Singapore and the Mediterranean. Then Hamas engaged in a military coup in which they murdered members of the Palestinian Authority, took over Gaza, and started sending rockets into Israel. It was only then that Israel began to control the borders and make sure that tunnels couldn't be built. They failed in that respect, that weapons couldn't be brought in. Gaza was not an occupied territory. It was a free territory. between 2005 and the time that Hamas took over. And so
is
the
it occupied
fault
now or not?
all
Is it
lies
occupied
with
now?
Hamas
According to you, is it
for
occupied now or not?
creating a
Is
territory
Gaza an
in
occupied
which
territory right now, or is it
Hamas
not?
imprisoned.
He's not answering my question.
It's not an occupied territory.
It's not. Okay. Is it
No.
an occupied territory according to
No.
the UN, the UK, and the US? Yes or no? It's a factual statement.
Not the U.S. The U.S. doesn't
No,
agree
it
with
doesn't.
that. You're
No,
wrong
you see
about
that.
that. The U.S.
That's why.
doesn't agree with
That's
that.
why you've had
No,
to
it doesn't.
plagiarize books in order
No.
to make your case from Joan Peters
Wait,
and
what are you saying
and
again?
Finkelstein
Say that
caught
again.
you out. You've had to plagiarize books because clearly your knowledge on this
Okay,
issue.
well, now we have another-
for your
now
age
we have another
is
count.
ridiculous. According to the US,
Now we have
Gaza,
another
the
count.
West Bank, and
We have
East
another,
Jerusalem
wait a minute. We have
are
another
an
count
occupied
in the
territory.
lawsuit against you. You've accused me of plagiarism, even though Harvard University conducted a thorough and complete study,
Just do
totally
it.
vindicated
if you're
me,
going to do something,
and
then
blamed
do
it on Finkelstein,
I believe
who then
according
lost
to
tenure
Norman
for
Finkelstein,
making a
in your
false
debate
charge against me
on
of
Democracy
plagiarism.
Now,
But
you
you're repeating
plagiarized
that charge.
Joan Peters'
Count
book.
2.
No problem. That's according to
What?
Norman
I plagiarized
Finkelstein,
my own
who
book?
debated you on Democracy Now! You plagiarized that book, and he showed you evidence in that debate. That's one thing. The second thing is
Harvard University
it's an
did a thorough
occupied-
study, found out that Finkelstein
matter.
had
It
made
doesn't
up the
matter.
Let him
charges.
respond. If you're going to
As
make
a
these
result,
allegations,
he
Alan can
lost
respond.
his position as a professor, but you've accused me of plagiarism. Count 2 in the civil
Sure, I'm ready.
tort case that I will be filing against you.
I know defamation laws in this country.
You
more than
clearly
you know.
don't.
Yes, I do, because I've had
You
4
clearly
cases.
don't.
I've had 4 cases. And moreover, and I've been the person taking the other person to court, including your good friend Douglas Murray, which I've got 2 cases against him. But what I'll tell you is that you probably know nothing about defamation law, just like you have no information, no knowledge, no peer-reviewed journal on international law. You're completely dumb on these issues, because if you're
I've
saying to
written
me...
55 books. I've written 55 books,
doesn't
many of
matter.
them
It's not on this
prize-winning
issue.
books.
You're not an
I've
authority
gotten
in
all
international
kinds
law.
of
Are you an authority in
awards,
international law?
And
Are
I
you a
have
scholarly
won
authority in
defamation
international law?
cases.
Are you a
and I'm an
scholarly authority in
authority
international
on the
law?
First
All
Amendment.
right, we're going around the houses. Alan, let me ask you this. One of the many problems I have with what Israel's been doing in terms of the scale of what it's been doing, but also what has been going on the West Bank with the increased settlements, very aggressive expansion of
agree.
settlements, I think is completely outrageous.
I agree.
But once
I
again,
agree.
you said
I
before...
agree.
we
I
all
am
agree on that?
opposed to
Yeah, we can,
Israel's-
but-
Well,
I
Alan's
am
agreed on that.
opposed to Israel's policies on the West Bank. I think Israel should continue a military occupation of the West Bank, just like I thought it should have continued a military occupation of
agree with that?
Gaza. But I'm opposed and have been opposed to civilian settlements since
heard what he said, right?
1967. And I'd like to see them ended in a process that leads to a 2-state solution. By the way, I'm curious whether my fellow guest here supports
Yeah, I
the right
agree.
of
Let's
Israel
ask him.
to
Do you agree with
exist
the two-state
as the
solution?
nation state of the Jewish people alongside a Palestinian state. Do you agree that Israel has the right to exist as the nation state of the Jewish people? Yes or no?
I think it's a viable option. In 2002, not just Hamas agreed to this, by the way, in what's called the Arab Initiative. The Arab
No, they
Convention.
didn't.
Hold on, you've just
No,
asked
they
me a
didn't.
question. You've asked me a question. You can check me. You can fact check me. In 2002, there was something called the Arab Convention. And in fact, Iran itself was part of it, even though it's not an Arab country, but it was part of the 2002 Arab Convention. And they both said, so long as Israel does not occupy Gaza, it does not occupy the Golan Heights, and it does not occupy the West Bank, which you just advocated for, then there can be a 2-state solution. Even Hezbollah
That's
mentioned
false.
the same thing.
That's
That
totally
Hezbollah
false.
mentioned this point.
That's totally false.
Hezbollah mentioned this, and
Well,
Iran
have
agreed with
they-
it. And members of
have
the
they
IOC
recently
agreed with it. Hold on.
recognized-
Members of the IOC...
Have they recently recognized Israel's right to exist? Has Iran recognized Israel's right to exist? Now, I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking
Okay.
about now. Does Hezbollah,
Yeah.
Hamas, and Iran recognize Israel's right to exist as the nation state of the Jewish people? The
Alan,
answer
let
to
me
that is
ask you
clearly
the
no.
other thing that I find really difficult, and Thomas Friedman wrote a very good column for the New York Times today, which I read just before we started this, basically saying that Israel seems to have no plan for what happens after this. And in fact, the UAE, who've normalized relations with Israel, has already offered to go into Gaza at the end of this war in Gaza and to help build a coalition to rebuild Gaza and get the people back on track.
agree.
But Netanyahu is refusing to countenance that. He's refusing to countenance the idea of a 2-state solution. You know, I've said for a while, I think Netanyahu is becoming a massive problem in this. And it's also hard, as Thomas Friedman said, to avoid the conclusion that Netanyahu is acting in self-interest, because the more he's been attacking Hezbollah, the more popular he's grown. Secondly, he has these corruption charges awaiting him the moment this is all over. There's no incentive, actually, for him right now to try and bring peace anywhere. And he doesn't really sound like a man who wants to bring peace anywhere.
He didn't accept it in 2002.
Let Alan respond to that.
Why should he respond twice?
Because I'm asking Alan.
I would like to see a resolution of Gaza, much like the resolution of Nazi Germany after the Second World War, a Marshall Plan, an effort to rebuild it, an attempt to occupy. What happened in Germany was occupied by 4 countries: France, Russia, Britain, and the United States. I would like to see a rebuilding of Gaza. I think the people of Gaza are entitled to a Hamas-free government, perhaps even a democratic government. I would like to see that on the West Bank. I am a strong supporter of a two-state solution in which Israel can live in peace. That's all Israel has ever wanted since 1948, when it was attacked in a genocidal war. 1967, 1973. All Israel wants to do is live in peace. And if Israel can live in peace with a Palestinian neighbor that's peaceful, that would be my
What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that as an ambition?
Well, he said all Israel wants to do is live in peace. And I think what Israel wants to do is have pieces of other people's land. And as he's just agreed a second ago, and you didn't even challenge him on it, which I find quite incredulous actually, is that he said, I think that the West Bank should be military occupying Israel should be military occupying the West Bank. He says that.
Absolutely.
Now, occupation.
Of course, as long as there's belligerency, there should be an occupation.
Why are you interrupting me? I've let you speak for a very long time. I've let you speak for a very long time. Now you're interrupting me. I didn't give you permission to interrupt me. I didn't give you permission to interrupt me in this manner. What I'm saying to you is, according to international law, there cannot be occupation of one sovereign nation over another. It doesn't seem like you care about international law. What do you mean?
Wrong. No, you're just wrong.
Okay, just be quiet for a second.
United States occupied Japan. The United States occupied Germany. Great Britain occupied Germany. You can have a military occupation as long as there is belligerency that continues.
Your former friend Epstein, and be quiet for a second. Pretend I'm Epstein, your former friend, and be quiet and listen to what I have to say. Yeah? Whether the United States of America did it or not is not an indication of the legality of something. Occupation
is legal.
Occupation is by
military occupation is legal while belligerency continues. Okay. That's the law.
Are you going to be quiet? Are you going to be quiet? I've let you speak for about 3 or 4 minutes uninterrupted. He asked you 2 questions, and I've stayed quiet. Why? Are you okay? I'm saying that military occupation of one sovereign nation over another is not something that international law accepts because it contravenes the
false. False. You're false.
So. Give me the evidence to the contrary. I'm waiting for you.
It's clear that every country that has had a war has occupied the losing country until belligerency is over. Once belligerency is over, as it was in Germany and Japan, 2 or 3 years after the war, the occupation ended.
So why is it that if you're saying
military occupation is permissible as long as there's belligerency? Civilian occupation is not.
If what you're saying is true, why have the organs of the United Nations condemned the occupation of Israel? Why? The ICC, the ICJ.
They have condemned the civilian aspects of the occupation. They have condemned the building of settlements, which I also condemn.
What you're saying about a military occupation. You're lying just like you had to when you defended the.
Stop it, Mohammed, for goodness sake.
Why?
It's pathetic.
Why? Why is it pathetic?
Attacking lawyers for defending people is so pathetic.
Being proud of it, yeah.
Of all the ad hominem attacks you could use, it is the least effective.
What do you think of Epstein?
And the most embarrassing.
You're defending him too much today.
I think Epstein was a disgusting human being.
So he's proud of defending him. Do you condemn him for that?
Well, I just don't care. I'm talking about Israel.
Oh, you don't care now, but why is it disgusting?
I'm talking about Israel and the Middle East.
Okay, so let's go back to the point. He was just advocating occupying the West Bank, Israel occupying the West Bank. We got to the point where he was saying that's acceptable. I'm saying that if that's acceptable from an international law perspective, then you would expect the ICC and the ICJ and these organs of the United Nations to agree with him on that assessment. They have not agreed with him on that assessment. No, even the United Kingdom doesn't agree with him on that assessment. The national position on the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank is that it's illegal. It's effective military control. So you don't know what you are talking about. And if that was possible, if it's okay for one nation, a sovereign nation, to go ahead and occupy another one, then sorry to say, Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine, the same thing, the same
So
argument
what
can
you're
be made.
saying, your position is that when a country is attacked and it wins the war, it must leave the next day. No country has ever done that. You continue the military occupation until all belligerency ends.
Many of the conventions that were put in place were put in place after World War II.
ends in the
But hold
Gaza
on,
Strip,
you asked me a question.
the occupation should end. There should not be civilian settlements.
So it's a fallacy,
but there should be a
this is the
military attempt to control belligerency.
Are you going to
That's the
you
law.
asked me your position, and then you've
Well, he tried to
misquoted.
answer you, but once again, you shouted over him. So
Do you
people
agree
can't
with
hear
him?
the answer.
Wait a minute, do you agree with him?
What about whether I agree with him or
Do
not?
you agree with him?
Let the man
Why are you
answer
running
your
away
question.
from this? Do you agree with the
You ask a
legitimacy
question
of
and you
occupation?
shout over the answer.
Is it okay for one country to occupy another sovereign nation? Is it okay or
Do you
not?
know what is okay? I've had
yes
enough
or
of
no?
this. I'm done.
Oh, you give up?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. I need a break. I need a cup of tea. Alan, thank you for your patience. I asked you to have a
My
civilised
pleasure,
debate.
and
You tried,
thank you for
despite,
being- thank you
despite
for
extreme
being fair.
provocation,
Of course.
on a very personal and ill-informed way, you have managed to be civilised. Mohammed,
I'm
wish
sure
you
you're
could
going to
say
say
the
that.
same.
Because your friend is a good friend.
I appreciate
I like
that.
Alan. I respect Alan.
I'm sure you do.
And you, Mohammed, let yourself down today. That's
I
okay.
think you let yourself down.
I'm sure the people that follow you on
He's a monster.
cheering you on.
He's a monster.
No, he's not.
He's not. Okay.
No, he's not.
Okay, he defended a monster. You agree
The
with
only
that?
person who's behaved
Did he offend the
the
monster?
only person who's behaved in a monstrous way in this debate.
Okay, whatever. That's
is
your
you.
opinion. That's your
Is
opinion.
you.
You've given up this debate.
No, I've actually
You've
run
thrown
out of
in-
time. We're
I
running
defended
2.5
the
minutes over
both
time.
given up.
Constitution, and
You
I
were,
will
as you know,
continue
you
to
were
do
booked
so.
till 5 o'clock. It is 5:03.
I don't even know
We've
that.
actually run out of time.
Fantastic.
But
It's
we've
done.
also booked to debate something that you've rarely spent much time on debating because you were far too busy scoring personal, cheap little jibes, ill-informed jibes.
Whatever.
at the other
You
person
do.
we're debating with.
It's good.
You
What's
know,
good
when
for
I
the
think-
goose is not
and
good
I
for the
always think-
gander.
and I always think
What's
when
good for the goose
I
is that you
always
can't
think-
handle it. You
I
can dish
always
it
think-
out, but you
I
can't
always-
take it.
Oh, I can
You've got a
take-
weak chin.
I can take anything, son.
You've got a heavy
But let me
punch,
tell
but a
you,
weak jaw.
I always think when people get
Glass
personal
jaw.
and abusive like
You
you
and
have,
him.
it's because they can't
You're
argue
weak.
the argument.
You're both weak.
Because they can't argue the argument.
Whatever.
People who can't win an argument, the normal
Okay.
way of debating,
You've just
they
run away
resort
from
to
this
ad
debate.
hominem attacks and
Okay,
personal abuse.
sure.
That's what you've done.
I think
from
you've
the
given
moment
up
this
on this
started.
debate. I think you've
And you
given
let
up
yourself
on this
down,
thing.
Mohammed.
I think you have both given
You
up
let
because
yourself
you
down.
realised that what you were spewing was false, and
Yeah.
you were talking about the pager attack, and you said about it that was an act of military brilliance. I'm sure if it happened here in Sainsbury's and a little white boy was killed, you wouldn't say that, would you?
You know what? Like
You've
I said,
also
Yeah,
let
yeah,
down
run
the
away from that question
Palestinian
too.
people. You've
We're
also
done.
let down the Palestinian people.
he has let down the Palestinian
Oh, sure,
people.
whatever.
I agree.
I think you
agree.
both let yourself down. I think you both given up.
Okay.
And I think the standing 10 count has been done, and I think the white towel has been thrown in.
Yeah.
And I think the people can judge what I've done today.
Okay. You know what? On that, I think we can all agree. People can watch your
agree.
performance
I
in the
agree.
last hour
Let
and
the
they can
people
judge
judge.
accordingly. And let me tell you, Mohammed, they will. But thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in. Alan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.